Hello, my name is Anakin and today I'm going to block one of my new shawls. I've just finished it. I've literally just cast it off this about half an hour ago. So it hasn't got a name yet, but this is what it looks like unblocked. It's a fairly simple shape. It's a crescent shape knitted sideways. So it's quite a long, shallow crescent shape. Perfect to wrap around your neck several times to wear as a scarf and things like that. So I don't think I've blocked a tutorial showing this kind of shape before, so I thought it'd be useful to do that. So this is the shawl. I have woven in all the ends and then I soaked it for about 10 minutes in lukewarm water with a dash of wool wash. I prefer to use soak, or if I can't get soak, I'll use Eucalan, but any wool wash will do. I prefer the no rinse ones like soak and Eucalan because you just soak it with a dash of the wool wash in and then you just take it out, squeeze the water out. When you squeeze the water out, be careful, don't wring it, just squeeze it. And then I rolled it up into a thick towel and pressed down on it a bit to get rid of most of the water. So the things I'm going to use to block this shawl are my Knit Pro blocking mats. And I got Knit Pro blocking wires. You can see that. And then I've also got my Knit Pro knit blockers. I don't know how much I'll use those, whether I'll use pins instead, but that's what the knit blockers look like. They are, hang on, can you see that? They got like teeth. There we go. They're like combs almost. So I don't know whether I'll use those or whether I'll use my pins, which I left over on the side. I've got my blocking pins. You see that? Don't know. They're like T-pins. I don't know whether you can see that. Anyway, I don't know whether I'm going to use my knit blockers or my blocking pins yet, but I've prepared my dining room table. I knit most of my shawls on my dining room table, unless they're really, really huge. We've got a dog at the moment who we only had for a year, and I don't know whether he would respect my knitting if I blocked it on the floor. I've got a feeling he would probably just run straight over it. So I'm trying to block everything on the table, and it's much better for my back and my knees as well. So I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start in the corner here. I'm going to put the top edges straight, and then the lower edge is kind of diagonal, then straight for a bit, and then it's got this kind of shape back the other side. So it's kind of down here, straight, and then up, back up to the edging. So I'm going to start by putting the blocking wires in. Now along the top, the main body of the shawl is in garter stitch. There is some lace over here, which probably doesn't show up on camera at the moment. So this is just garter stitch. So I'm going to just run this. Don't want to do it right on the edge, but close to the edge. I'm probably doing sort of 2 rows. Some kind of, no, 4 rows, I think. Sort of 2 garter ridges. So I take the wire along 2, down, under 2, up, sort of 2 to 4. I think I'm actually probably doing 4, most 4, 3 to 4, I don't know. But you want to have the blocking wires, you want to feed it through the fabric fairly close together. You don't want to leave like really big gaps, because then you'll end up with scallops along the top when you stretch the shawl out. I do actually really like to do yarn overs along the edge, because then you can just thread the blocking wire through the yarn overs. And I did actually originally do that on this shawl, but I ripped it out because it was just making this top edge a bit too loose and I didn't like it. So, but I do have yarn overs. I do have yarn overs along here. So there's a lace edging here, and then garter stitch. The body of the shawl is garter stitch. It's a fairly simple shawl. So just going to feed this through here a little bit. So you want to feed it through so that you don't want to leave the wire so that it's you don't want to put the wire through so that you don't have any. You want to have a little bit of gap either side because you are going to stretch it. So let's start with that, and then I'm also going to, oh, some of my wires, so you can see that end up very crooked. That one is really bad, so I'm going to use this one. I always end up with really bent wires. I don't quite know why. So what I've done, because this will end up longer than my table, so what I've done is I've just put blocking mats the length of my table. It's only a smallish dining room table. It seats 6 people, so it's not particularly big, and it's not as big as this shawl. The shawl will be longer than the dining room table is. So what I'll do is I'll stretch it for the length of the table, and then I'll slide this over onto this chair, so I can put more mats down the other end and carry on. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So now I'm going along the lace edge. The lace edge has yarn over holes, 2 stitches in from the edge. So I'm going underneath the fabric and then back up again, so that every other yarn over. And I find that much easier than trying to put it through a sort of solid edge of garter stitch. But not all shawls work or look good with the yarn over along the edge, so, or close to the edge. So, you know, you've got to work with that. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more. There we go. So I'm going to start by stretching this out. I think I'm going to use my lip blockers, especially along the top. So I'm going to start putting one in the corner here, and then I'll stretch it along the top here. Now you've got to be a bit careful, because if you stretch it if you stretch it a lot lengthwise, you won't be able to stretch it as much this way, and if you stretch it a lot this way, you won't stretch as much this way. So you've got to decide, look at the measurements, the final measurements in the pattern, and decide whether you'd rather have it slightly deeper or slightly longer. That probably depends on your personal taste, your size, your shape, how you like to wear your shawls. So now that I'm stretching this, I actually found here that I've threaded it through too far, so I need to just let a bit off the edge here. So you really want a little bit of a gap, so about that much either end of the wire that sticks out of the edge of the fabric. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So this one doesn't have any like points on the edge or anything like that. It's just a straight edge. You just have lace. The lace decreases into the corner. The lace is narrower here, then it widens out, and then it continues along the bottom edge of the shawl. Okay, so that's. So when using wires, you don't need to put these close together. If I didn't use wires, I could use these and just place them like right close together to get a straight edge, but I prefer to do it, I prefer to use wires really. It's easier for straight edges. So you can see this is stretched out. You can see how much wider this section is compared to this bit here. So now I'm going to move along a bit. So I'm going to slide this over, and then I'm going to get another wire and go along the bottom of the shawl here. So I'm actually nearly, right, what I'm going to do, this bit here is where so this bit comes down like that, and then it goes straight along like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that one out. I'm going to see if I can make this wire carry on to the point where it straightens out. So I think that will make sense. Okay, so that's about that. And then we're going to go along the bottom of the shawl. So I'm just going to tilt this down a little bit more. And just sliding, I just slid the mats off the table and just rested them on the chair that was on the end of my table. Then I'm going to go along the bottom edge of the shawl. Right, there we go, hang on. So just going in and out of the points along here. So I'm going into a yarn over, under the fabric, under 2 yarn overs, back up, across, down, like that, every other yarn over. And you don't have to do every other yarn over, it's just what I like to do. Okay, so I'm going to put some more mats on the end of the table here. So I put the wire in here for the straight section of the shawl, roughly about there, I think. Okay, so that's where the straight, so the straight section of the shawl has a lace bit has lace in the garter stitch. So now I'm going to, before I start pinning that out, I'm going to put the wire through the top edge of this shawl. Now if you have the space, it's probably better to put all the wires in first and then start stretching and pinning it. But I don't really have the space to do that with the way my setup works. With using my dining room table, I find this easier to put the wires into a section, then pin that section out and then do the next section. Depends on the shape of the shawl and the size of it, but for this shape of shawl, which is going to be quite long, I just find that a lot easier. But remember, you've got to work with what works for your setup and your limitations, if you have any. Just because I do something doesn't mean that that's the only way to do things. Okay, so now I'm going to start stretching this bit out. So I'm just going to slide this up a little bit so I've got a bit more space here. I'm actually going to put some more mats. You can see this is where my mats end now. I've already put one row of mats in, and I'm going to put another row in before I start stretching. So that means that I'll slip 2 of these squares off the end of my table, but I do have a chair there, so it is kind of resting on a chair. There we go. Okay, so let's start stretching this and pinning it with these knit blockers. Remember, if you don't have the blocking mats, you could just use these knit blockers, but you have to put them like really close together, like sort of right like that, right close, you know, one immediately after the other kind of thing. Right, so for this kind of thing, I prefer to use the bigger knit blockers, so they're the big ones, and then you've got smaller ones as well that are half the weight. So they come in a pack of mixed ones. I don't know how many there are of each. I got 2 packs. I could probably do with getting a third. I use these more when I do crescent shaped shawls, so if you want to know other ways I use them, look at some of my tutorials. They show how I block crescent shaped shawls, because I use them a lot for that. Okay, so let's do this lower edge now. I know I am just off the camera at the moment, but I will be back in shot. So at the moment I'm just pinning it out roughly. I will measure and adjust it after I've got it to the shape I think it's going to be and the size I think it's going to be, then I will adjust it and check the measurements and things. So now I'm going to now I'm going to do this final section over here. I probably have to put one more blocking mat, row of blocking mats in, but we'll see. So just going to go along the top here. It is a bit difficult when you stretch that part of the shawl because the bit that you haven't, you can see how this kind of pulls in. So it is a bit, it would be easier to put the, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to put the wires in. It is easier to put the wire through the whole shawl and then stretch it, but you've got to work with the space you've got as well. And you want to make sure when you're putting in the wires along the edge here that you're close to the edge, but you don't want to be right on the edge, but you don't want to be too far in from the edge either. So that's about right. So this wire is actually quite bent, so I'm going to leave a section to kind of bend across the shawl here. And then I'm going to do this section, and this is the bit that curves back up to the corner. So let's see which way is best to do this. So when you finish a shawl, sometimes you may not be 100% sure exactly what shape it should be blocked out to. By that I mean, you know, you can see with this when you finish knitting it, the shape it is. You can't make it something it's not, but some shapes, especially crescent ones, I've seen some people when I design crescent shawls and I put crescent shawl in the description, but I haven't shown a picture of the shawl kind of laid flat or done a schematic of the shawl. And sometimes I've seen people, you know, crescent shawls which should have a curved edge at the top. I've seen people block it with a straight edge and things like that. So if you're not 100% sure how a shawl should be blocked, lay it out before you wet it. Just lay it out in a big flat area, floor, table, anything, and just see what shape it naturally wants to be, because you've got to work with that. So that's kind of your starting point. You can't make a rectangular shawl become a crescent, for example. Now, I don't know whether you can see it, but I got some markers, like these padlock markers stuck in there, and this was the beginning. So this is the edge I cast off, and then I increased along here, and I've just put some of these markers just to mark where I finished certain charts, just to help me later when I come to check measurements and write a pattern and finish the pattern and things like that. So right, so we're gonna go along the top here first. So what I'm noticing now is that I've stretched this bit here much more than the equivalent here. So this here should come, I don't know whether you can see it. Can you see how the lace here kind of curves around to here? So this bit should be here. So that doesn't look, and actually I've just noticed I got the same here on the other side. So I'm gonna actually go back a little bit. Just go back over here. So what I'm noticing, it's got a lace section in the middle. Lace starts here and you should come straight up here, and it's actually coming here. So I've stretched this top edge too much. So I'm going to take all these out. I didn't notice it when I was doing this, which is a bit annoying, but so I'm going to take this back a bit, which means I probably have to adjust all these. So I basically stretched the top edge too much. So I've just got to go all the way along the edge here, take the blockers, knit blockers out, and just ease the fabric back again, because I want this to come in a straight line here. I also wanted, unless I can actually stretch this lower edge out a bit more, which I don't think I can. So I'm just going to stretch this lower edge as much as I can. There we go. And then I know now that I want the top edge of the lace to finish here. So this, you can see the lace here and the solid bit here. So I want that to be a straight line. But this top edge, I could probably stretch this top edge a bit more, but I just kind of stretch it out of shape a little bit really. Ow. That's looking a lot better. So now that there's a straight line there, before it was kind of coming around like this, which didn't look good at all. Okay, so I'm going to see what I'm going to do now, because this section is going to be the same as the section on the other side of the lace. So let me just slide this back a bit, because I need this on the table. Now the thing when I slide these things around is that sometimes I slide them and I forgot to move those and they fall on the floor. So this section from here over to the edge, it's got to be the same as this section from here that way. So I'm going to just grab my tape measure and measure this section here. So I want to measure along the top edge here, from where the lace starts right to the edge. That's 71 centimeters. Then I've got to make sure I've got 71 centimeters here as well. I think I probably need to put in another, I need to put another row of blocking mats. Now sometimes what I do when I want to, so I know that this wants to measure 71, so what I'll do is I'll get a pin, 71, and then over here I'll put the pin where that measurement, so here, where my finger is, that's where I want this shawl to end up. That's the full length of the shawl. So I'm going to pull this top edge that far, and then then I can just finish pinning out this top edge. Okay, so I finished all my big knit blockers now. Okay, so now I'm going to stretch this lower edge. What I'm going to do, because I've actually, there's a little section here where the wire is just slightly too short. I have wires from a couple of different sets, so that might just be those different brand, because I was fine on the other side, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these ones here to kind of, just to make that bit straight. I also need to measure along, so this bit compared to the bit the other side of the center lace panel, and things like that. But I want to pin it out first, and then I can go along and measure and make sure the shawl is kind of symmetrical. So now I just want to stretch these sections as much as I can. I can also stretch it more along the lower edge here, which means I'm probably going to have to go to the other end of the shawl where I started and stretch that bit as well. So okay, so what I'm going to do now, before I stretch it anymore, is just to check. Main thing I worry about, so I've checked the section from here, so this is the center lace panel, the center of that lace is the center of the shawl. So from here to the edge on that side should be the same, and from here to the edge on that side should be the same. And I've checked that. I will double check in a minute, but before that I'm going to just measure from here to the other end to make sure that's the same. I can kind of eyeball it and see what it's roughly the same, but I just want to make sure. Here there was a section that wasn't actually covered by the wire is kind of slipped out, so I had a bit here which didn't have this is tiny section there which didn't have a wire in it. So rather than risking kind of getting like a dip in it, I just moved one of these over to kind of straighten that bit out. Okay, so let's measure this bit here. That's 68. Okay, so that's roughly right, roughly the same. I'm just going to stretch that bit a little bit. And then, okay, so I'm also just going to check here. So I'm going to check, let's find a point on the shawl. That's 42 centimeters down. It's about 34. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. How fussy you are about checking these things that I'm doing now is entirely up to you. Some of these things you can just kind of eyeball, so it is actually slightly more stretched here than it is on the other side. So I'm just going to release that back a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that is it, I think. So now I'm going to just measure all the final, I'm just going to do final measurements. I'm going to measure the full length of the shawl along the top edge, the width or the depth rather at the deepest part, which is the section in the middle. And then I'm also going to measure the width of the edging at the full width, and also the width, the length and the width of the lace in the middle, and then things like that, just to help me when I'm writing the final pattern to work out my tension and things like that. So I'm going to just come pick the camera up and do like a sweep of the whole shawl so you can see exactly what it looks like fully stretched out. So this is the shawl stretched out, so you can see here that it comes off the edge of my table. There's a chair under here that it's resting on, and that's the full length of the shawl. So this middle section, this lace in the middle, kind of chevron lace pattern in the middle, that's the full width or depth of the shawl. Then it gets narrow again at the end. Okay, so that's it. This will be, obviously by the time this tutorial is uploaded, the shawl will have a name, so I will pop all the details for where you can find the pattern below this video. Thank you very much for watching.